You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. The Texas Bowl was a disaster. My sincere credit to all the players that went and played really hard amid awful circumstances, gave it their all, but it went the way we all expected that it would when you have 38 scholarship players, 4 coaches, and we all know what happened. The most interesting part of the game was Brian Kelly's interview during the first half, which you commonly see when a new head coach is hired, but the team's playing in a bowl game. The coach typically, if he's not coaching the bowl game, which is rare, goes to the game and often is interviewed on the broadcast. So that happened. And I was paying particular attention, not only because the game was miserable, but because we just haven't heard much from Brian Kelly. He did his intro press conference. He did an interview on the SEC Network. It's really been about it. I mean, he has been, even amid early signing period, never did a press conference to discuss the early signing class. Hasn't done any media availability to talk about his staff hires yet. Hasn't done any local media, hasn't allowed his new hires yet to do local media, which will come in time, and I understand it. So whenever he does an interview, when he speaks, it's going to be interesting to hear what he says. And so last night was an instance where Brian Kelly was there at the game and went on ESPN and gave an interview. And although you had the opportunity to talk to a guy about so much, of course, they defaulted to the Dancing with Walker Howard and the family accent thing. This is how Brian Kelly explained it.
Well, listen, Walker Howard is a 5-star quarterback, and you know that you got to do what your quarterback asks, right? If he says you got to dance, you're going to dance. Why wouldn't you dance? And listen, whether it was dancing or I couldn't get my accent down with family. Listen, I'm from Boston. We don't have strong accents. And by the way, you cannot get on me about my accent because you got one too.
I was stunned. Stunned. If you go do a Twitter search of Brian Kelly's name or Google Brian Kelly. Google Brian Kelly. I just did it, by the way. Google Brian Kelly, hit news, and look at the headlines that pop up. There's one from The Advocate about recruiting quarterbacks Texas Bowl. New York Post, Brian Kelly has bizarre explanation for his sudden Southern accent. Daily Advertiser, Saturday Down South, Brian Kelly addresses viral dance video and terrible Southern accent. Boston.com, Brian Kelly claims people from Boston, quote, don't have strong accents. The Spun, Brian Kelly addresses viral accent controversy. Controversy! They use the word controversy to describe an accent! Controversy! USA Today, Brian Kelly reflects on attempted Southern accent, quote, I'm from Boston, we don't have strong accents. There are dozens, and it's all about the accent thing. First of all, people, he was kidding. Are you that dense? Are you aching to throw darts at this man? I don't understand that. Now, I don't know if Brian Kelly has pissed off every national reporter throughout his career. He's been at Notre Dame for 12 years. I don't know. But even Boston.com! Boston.com! How did Boston.com not know that was a joke? He even says at the end, as he's going on, you can't make fun of me for my accent, because he says, play it at the very end. You just forward it to the end if you would, because he's talking to Hasselbeck, who's from Boston. Play it.
Getting on me about my accent, because you got one too.
They're laughing. It was a joke. How did nobody get that this was a joke? How? I'm stunned. Of course, Boston has one of the thickest, most recognizable, most often imitated accents in the world. You think a guy from Boston doesn't know that? He's talking to another guy in the booth from Boston who went to Boston College. How in the world? Look, my head is sweating. I'm so flummoxed. I mean, for 5 years, we had to deal with this with people cracking on Ed Ogeron because of his voice. Say what you will. I took I threw plenty of stones at Ed Ogeron for his job as a coach. Never made fun of the guy for his accent. It's what it is. Who cares? He's proud of his culture, his heritage. He should be. And so should Brian Kelly being from Boston. I shouldn't be floored, but the amount of people that did not understand that even at the end he says you can't make fun of me for my accent because you have one too. Okay. Brian Kelly did talk a good bit about the program, his vision, the direction, and all of that stuff. First of all, he was asked about how much contact he's had with the team.
Well, I think this has been more about, getting our support staff in place, really starting to get our strength and conditioning people in place, because they're the ones that are spending more time than I had to keep our recruiting class together. Those are the most important principles right now.
He told you that, and he was right on. When he got hired, it was not about getting this team ready for this meaningless bowl game. It was about getting the early signing period, getting the staff in place. That's what is of the utmost importance. Now he's going to finish off that class in February, and then it's going to be, boom, now you're getting ready for spring ball, and it's his team. It's his culture. That's all coming. Play number 4, if you would, Muse. He was asked what pushed him to take the job. And I want you to remember, with the context, when he was hired, I explained this to you because I kind of have the rare experience of having lived in South Bend, spending a year up there at school, and I'm from here, and I've spent the bulk of my life here. So I have the experience of having lived in both. And what I explained to you is South Bend is a very cold, dreary, overcast, miserable place. The Notre Dame campus is beautiful, but the city of South Bend is terrible. It's not to say that the people are bad. It's just it's in Northwest Indiana. You're on the South Bend of Lake Michigan. It snows from October to May. There's not a lot there. The students, it's 8,000 students. You don't leave campus. They live on campus for 4 years. They dine on campus. You go to dorm parties. There's no nightlife. It's very difficult to recruit. And Brian Kelly, his current recruiting class at Notre Dame, 23 players from 18 states. If you want to recruit, you got to get on a plane and go recruit because there's no talent in Indiana. So with that as the background, listen to Brian Kelly explain why he took the LSU job.
At the end of the day, this is really about, for me, I want to be part of this community. I want to be part of Louisiana. I'm originally from the Midwest and in the East Coast, and so I want to really immerse myself in Louisiana and this community, and I'm so excited to be down here in Baton Rouge. They've treated us great. It's about family. It's really about, the football is so important. And look, this is about graduating from LSU and playing for championships, and that's why I'm in this business, and the alignment at the university towards that end. It's really what pushed me towards this position.
Forgive me, I set up the wrong one. Play the recruiting one, Muse.
I think it starts with the geographical recruiting base. Certainly the ability to recruit the state of Louisiana that has incredible talent. Recruit that area first and foremost. Recruit your base. I was used to going across the country to have to recruit. To be able to recruit the state of Louisiana in that area is really going to be an important piece for us, and I'm excited about that.
You don't have to get on a plane and fly hours to go see top recruits that you may not get. You get in a car and you drive to Catholic High, or to Rummel, or to Carr, or to Lafayette Christian, or to St. Thomas More, or to West Monroe. Acadiana. The schools. I'm not trying to leave anybody out. But it's different. It's a different game, especially in the NIL world, where there's going to be the 5-star quarterback and the 5-star tackle that don't care about NIL. They maybe care about it, but they care more about going to LSU, and they're going to go to that school no matter what. But he did also talk about the transfer portal. And this is so important because the transfer portal, I've been asked a lot, what's realistic as far as expectation for Brian Kelly to get this thing back together when you look at 38 players that played last night in the Texas Bowl? Keep in mind, you got more than 38 players, okay? I mean, Keyshawn Butte is a scholarship player. He's going to be back. He's hurt. John Emery, Anthony Bradford, Garrett Dellinger, Joseph Evans, Dwight McGlothern, Major Burns. These are all players that are scholarship players that are really good players that are hurt. They're going to be back next year. So your numbers are better than 38, but you're still thin. There's no denying that. This is a year where not only do you have immediate eligibility for transfers, but a year where you can sign 7 transfers over your 25. So you've got to maximize that, and that wasn't lost on Brian Kelly.
You know, from my perspective, I would love to build everything through your freshman class and develop your football team that way. But we are going to have to use the transfer portal, and this will have to be a transitional build this first year through the transfer portal. But moving forward, I want to build this football team through your freshmen. Obviously, the freshman players that you bring in your development, but we're going to have to use the transfer portal, so it is a little easier.
They got to do it this year. Go to Twitter and search LSU transfer offer, something like that. Y'all, this is just one quick search, the names that I could find that they've offered already. They've already signed Miles Frazier, the offensive lineman from FIU, and they got a commitment from Slade Roy, the long snapper from East Carolina. So they've already added 2. Hawaii wide receiver Nick Mardner, Virginia linebacker West Weeks, Miami of Ohio linebacker Ivan Pace. They offered him, but he's now committed to Cincinnati. Hawaii defensive lineman Jonah Laulu. Wyoming wide receiver Isaiah Nair. Pitt wide receiver Conte Mumfield. Y'all, Brian Kelly is out here throwing out transfer offers like dudes on Mardi Gras floats throwing beads. I mean, it's just, I need that sheet. It's like, the Oprah thing. You get an offer. You get an offer. You get an offer. You get an offer. And who wants to come to LSU? You get an offer. You get an offer. He's throwing them. Everyone's getting a transfer offer. Everyone is getting an offer because they need help at damn near every position. And if you can find someone with major college experience who's been a good football player, they can immediately help you. And you've got space. You have space to add them. I mean, you got 19 more spots. You got space. Come on, just offer them all. Everyone, just bring them all in. So, yes, in the future, I fully expect you're going to cherry pick out of the portal. You have an opportunity to add a major, like we've seen, a spot where you need a safety. You go get a Major Burns from Georgia. Yeah, you're going to do that. It's not going to be to the extent as it is this year, out of necessity in the future. And one more that Brian Kelly talked about was bringing his coaching staff together with one spot still remaining to go. Here's what Brian Kelly said.
I think the staff is going to be one that can recruit, as I mentioned, certainly the state of Louisiana. But, we're going to have to go outside a little bit. Houston's going to be a great recruiting area for us, but we'll have to go outside the state a little bit in certain areas as well. But it will be very familiar with me in terms of understanding my offense and what we want to do on a day-to-day basis.
I love how he's assembling his staff. It will be very familiar with me in terms of what we do on a day-to-day basis. That's why he went and got Mike Denbrock, to have a coordinator there in place that knows what he wants. And then you're supplementing that offensive staff, and actually on both sides of the ball, with guys that know Louisiana how to. He said 2 things he said most important: recruit Louisiana, staff that knows my offense. And that's what he's done. He's brought people that know this state that can help him recruit this state immediately, and guys that know his offense that can help him implement it very quickly. Y'all, it was so refreshing to see an LSU head coach actually represent himself, do an interview competently, to be articulate, to have a plan and be able to explain it. It was just, after the last 15 years, it was very refreshing. I mean, not to say the other guys didn't have their strengths, certainly had their weaknesses, but as chief orators, neither Les Miles or Ed Ogeron were at the head of the class, and Brian Kelly is, and that being able to explain what you want to do, have an idea of what you want to do and be able to explain it concisely, it was refreshing to hear last night. You could certainly got a sense of where this program is headed under Brian Kelly, both in the short and the long term. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.